Human Resources Manager.
Okay, welcome to part 2. My name is Peter Odrakiewicz. We are in Poznań University College of Business, and today the topic is of the second lecture, continuation human resources. Is human resources very important aspects of management. Half of this group is probably in human resources and half in psychology of management. And just to underline, this is the abilities and skills of people, especially the employees of an organization. And if you are able to manage human resources, that is the very important part of management and a lot of opportunities in human resources field. So we are going to, of course, explain the term first. Human resources as the abilities and skills of people, especially the employees of an organization. If you study this subject, the subject is much more, of course this is subject of studies for many years, but just to give you some ideas, if you go into the work of human resources, what type of questions, what type of challenges you might be entering. Well, one of them is, of course, speaking about the human resources environment. Environment, of course, the work environment. About the strategies that your company may take into the human resources field, strategic human resources. Competing through globalization in human resources. Competing through technology in human resources. Another part, of course, is a whole legal environment. That means hiring people, firing people, and equal employment opportunities and safety. That is all job of the human resource manager. Many times during your career in that field, in human resources, you will have to analyze and design of the work, of the workspace, design the job. Of course, when the companies go through mergers and acquisitions, then there is a big job of support that needs to come from the Department of Human Resources, especially in planning and, of course, recruitment. Another way of talking human resources field, and is important, it's also the selection and placement. And the selection and placement we'll discuss maybe in my further lectures, but today we will just talk about the vocabulary. So what I propose to do, we are just moving now into another English for economics and human resources is our topic. I just introduce this a little bit as a part of the lecture, and we are going to move more. I'll just remind you what we studied in the first lectures. During the first
Human Resources Manager.
The first lecture in the human resources, as you remember, I will just get this back, the subject of human resources. We studied such things as first, it was absence and absenteeism. I'm just going to get it here. Then we went to ancillary and
Cafeteria plan.
And of course, we went to appraisal. When you are being appraised, when you are being evaluated. We talk also about background check, very important when you hire people.
Background.
That you check their background. We also talk about bargaining.
Bargaining.
Okay, and we talk about trade unions as the important part of the human resources job. We touch on the burnout.
Burnout.
When you are exhausted because of the tiredness, of lack of energy, it can also happen to a student. And a different definition of the verb buy.
Buy.
And we especially talk about buyouts. And when you can become a part of the buyout. And of course, we have finished on cafeteria plan.
Cafeteria plan.
When I was talking about, of course, us taking a break in a cafeteria, but cafeteria plan is a system in which an employee can choose which benefits they receive from a company, for example, a medical or a child care. So, we are now going into the new vocabulary, callback. What is a callback? A callback in human resources, it's an occasion when someone is asked to come back, especially for another job interview. So you go for one interview and they call you back for a second interview. How many interviews have you had for a job recently? How many students, how many of you have gone for an interview in the past year?
I did.
One,
4
okay.
times.
4 times?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone? Okay, else? How many of you have gone for more than one interview to compete for a job? Sometimes when you go for one interview and they call you back, that means that they ask you to come back for another interview. It's quite self-explanatory. Okay? But callback, it's not only a term that is used with an interview. The callback, it also used, a second meaning is a telephone call that you make back to someone who called you earlier. So, let's say you were out, someone left a message, well, you call that person back right now, so you make a callback. In commerce, it's also an occasion here, as a commercial term, it's an occasion when a customer takes goods back to a store or complains about goods or services because there is something wrong. In human resources, this is just the word callback. Has 4 meanings. In human resources, another meaning is an occasion when someone has to go back into work in order to deal with a serious situation there. For example, employees receive double the normal rate of pay for callback on the employee's regular day of rest. So let's say you work in a production and you have your day off. Could be a weekend. You could work for a hospital or for a hotel or some other industry. And you receive the call to come to work. So if it's on your day off, sometimes you may be remunerated. That means you receive the pay that is higher because they call you back. Could be an emergency, someone is sick, or there is a bigger, production that needs to be finished for Monday, and that's why you are being called back. A very important words here, it's
Champion of change.
champion of change. This is a person or someone in a senior position who supports and encourages changes in the way that the organization operates. In human resources, if you talk about this term, champion of change, is someone who is in charge of the program to change the way that the company operates.
Change agent.
Now, change agent. Change agent in human resources, of course, it's a noun. It's a countable noun. It's someone who is responsible for making sure that changes are made in the way that a company operates. Very important term is to compensate.
Compensate.
It's a verb, and it means to pay someone money because they have suffered injury, loss, or damage. You compensate someone. In human resources, in American English, is to pay someone in money and other ways for work that they do. So it can be the first meaning that you pay someone because they suffered some damage or injury. You compensate. Let's say your employee has broken the leg. So the insurance company that your company subscribes, they can compensate them. That means that they will give the employee some money for the loss of their ability to walk and so on. It can be some financial. But in American English, if you compensate someone, that means you pay someone money and other ways for work that they do. Okay. So you can talk about compensating executives. Of course, from the verb compensate, you have a noun. And the noun is called what?
Compensation.
Compensation. And compensation in human resources is, of course, an amount. So it's a money paid to someone because they have been hurt or harmed. And of course, in American English, compensation, comp, it means that is the total amount of money and other advantages that someone receives as an employee. So, for example, you go for an interview and the company can tell you what is the level of compensation that you expect. What would you answer? Let's say you go for your first job working as a customer service representative. And they ask you, what is the level of compensation that you expect? What would be your answer? If you say nothing, they will say, well, you are not good communicator. They're not hiring you. So what would you say? Your first job and maybe you just working in a company, maybe you provide insurance, you sell insurance. What could be an intelligent answer if an employer is asking you what type of compensation you expect and you don't want to tell them, I want, for example, $20 per hour or 60 zloty per hour? Of course, net. What would you say? How could you answer such a question? You understand the question? What are your pay expectations? How do you answer this question?
It depends on how can you, well, I would answer that it depends on you.
Okay, depends on you, of course. Depends on you. What else you could say?
Depends on our qualifications